Well, the old statement is that a week's a long time in politics, and nothing has demonstrated the truth of that statement like this past week. A week ago today, we were all talking about the Liberal leadership. The night before, one of the commercial television stations had gone out all guns blazing, saying that Malcolm Turnbull had the numbers and it might be on. A week later, how things have changed. To analyse the past week, we're joined here by Fairfax Canberra's Bureau Chief, Chris Johnson. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Chris.
So I guess it was really Fairfax's Ipsos poll that was published on Monday morning that showed a recovery by the government, a recovery to some extent by Tony Abbott, that really put all the leadership stuff on pause.
Yeah, what a difference a poll makes.
Yeah.
As you said, right up until the night before, we were talking leadership was on. Malcolm Turnbull, Julie Bishop was in there, and some reports said it was going to be a three-way contest. But this poll actually does show how much so many of the politicians live and die by polls.
I know, they always tell us.
They say they don't.
They always say, we don't care about the polls, the only one that matters, and yet it just... there had been a news poll earlier that was suggesting the same trend. People thought, well, maybe it's a so-called rogue poll. Every now and then you do get one. But the two polls are really reinforced each other. Now, it doesn't mean leadership's gone forever, but one would imagine that Tony Abbott now has clear air, at least to the budget. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think he's got the breathing space he was after there. I think if another poll came out before the budget that was bad for him and for the government, I think he'd still have enough time to get through the budget, and hopefully he'd be hoping that they'd put up a good budget and be able to sell it well. That's a big if, by the way. But what we have seen since our poll last Monday, they've totally backed off. His own side have backed off. But we've also seen...
So what do you mean by backed off? Because he was talking about kind of resetting, scraping off barnacles.
Yes, I mean they've backed off of him. They've backed off of pushing for a change in leader. And we have seen the Prime Minister changed tack quite a bit. We've seen a different Prime Minister this week. Tony Abbott's very fond, as we know, of his three-word slogans. He's been using a three-point slogan this week a lot. We've consulted, we've listened, and we've heard. He's used that a bit to try and get the message that we're consulting with the community. I'm consulting with my team, and we've seen a few changes, things that we knew were going to happen anyway. The Medicare co-payment back clip. That was a big deal this week.
One of the examples, I guess, for me, a clear example of that was the deployment of the troops to Iraq. We knew it was going to happen. It had been kind of leaked out. Then the New Zealand Prime Minister had very generously announced it the week before. We all knew it was coming. Tony Abbott took it to Cabinet, then he took it to the Outer Ministry, then he took it to the party room.
Right.
He went through all the steps. He briefed the opposition. So it was a step by step.
Right. Yeah.
And as you say, there's a number of other issues.
But a week ago, he might not have done that.
And another one was the defence pay issue. So he's gone, okay, this is unpopular.
Yep.
I wonder, is he going too far? Is he teaching good policy for...
No, I think he's going as far as he's comfortable with at the moment. Maybe he's even a little uncomfortable going this far, but I think he knows he needs to do this. One good example was the domestic violence issue. He actually agreed to sit down with Bill Shorten on discussing a crisis summit. He wouldn't have done that maybe a week or so ago.
It seems one of the criticisms, if you like, of him, including by some of his own MPs, is that he was a brilliant opposition leader because he was so combative, and his first instinct is to fight back whatever's put to him. And as you say, this week we've seen him go, oh no, that's okay, I'll sit down and talk to you. And of course, overlaid across all of that has been this rather spectacular bipartisan, multi-partisan, whatever, approach to Indonesia and the impending executions of Andrew Chan and Myuran Sukumaran. That has really put a different complexion on Parliament, hasn't it?
It has, and I think the Prime Minister has been more engaging, I guess, in what he's been saying this week about it. I don't maybe he overstepped the mark by publicly at least linking, the foreign aid and the executions. To do that publicly, wasn't great. I think that is something that he would, maybe do on the phone to his counterpart in Indonesia. But that, in and of itself, didn't sort of escalate the fact that these two were going to be executed. But I think his language has changed this week. He's really sort of stressed how big a deal this is to Australia without it acting sort of like an intimidatory sort of way towards Indonesia as well. Even today, just in the photos of the Chief of Police that we saw, I think our Prime Minister really addressed that really well, saying this was disrespectful. We have made DFAT has made a complaint. I think that is the right language. Linking foreign aid to it is not.
We look back now from this distance at the Howard Costello government, and we say, look, there was a critical point there when Shane Stone's memo was leaked, saying that the polling was showing the focus that John Howard was seen as mean and tricky, the government was. And Howard then did the listening thing, made some policy changes, politics started being more, by politics I mean, listening to the electorate became more important than just pure economic policy. Do you think maybe we'll look back at one point and say this was the week where that happened with the Abbott government?
Look, it may be. I think what's happened here, when the spill that didn't quite happen was on a couple of weeks ago and he survived that, straight away he came out and said, OK, I'll never want that to happen again. I'm going to be more consultative. But by the end of the week, it showed he wasn't. He got rid of Ruddock in the position. He was actually showing he's quite nasty about things still. And then we saw because of things like that his backbenchers and even cabinet ministers were saying, hey, this is not on, and it seemed like there was another push quite imminent. As we were talking, as of Sunday night, it was still on. I think the fact that the second round came so soon has been the wake-up call to the Prime Minister. And so we've seen this week, OK, I better change things a little. And so this week, maybe, as you're saying, maybe that week that has changed the course of the politics, at least for the government. And
in a sense, Labor up until now has really taken a leaf out of Tony Abbott's model as opposition leader. It's been very oppositionist. We've had it advancing a tax policy for multinationals. Now we've had the release of the intergenerational report. Now, does that mean we're going to have a better quality of political and economic debate, or is it back to the old partisan? That report's biased. We're not accepting that.
Well, I think Labor have been able to, or Bill Shorten has been able to almost fly under the radar for a while, because he was reaping the benefits of how bad the government was performing and the internal sort of ructions within the coalition. Now he's stepping up. I think particularly on domestic violence, I think Bill Shorten was very good this week. On the intergenerational report, the government has used this to blame Labor, and it's, it is a bit of spin, I think, and I think we now see this combative nature over this issue itself, as Labor won't accept that. The government's going to say, stay with us, we're safe. Look what happened, and look what would have happened if Labor had kept going on the course they had. Intergenerational report hasn't been used in that terms before, so this is a bit of a new dynamic. So I think we'll see some argy-bargy back from Labor over it.